This house is broken, we don't need no more, see no more.
If you think about technology, if you think about the whole world from the dot-com boom, from the failed pets.coms, the Amazon.coms, there were certainly the success stories, the price lines, and then there were the dot bombs. The startup really was what the whole new media revolution was about. Startups are not new to us. HP began in a garage. So we understand and recognize the power of the startup. But if we think about technology and specifically our lives from the whole boom and rise of the internet, and then seemingly the bursting of the bubble, and then the phoenix rising again out of the ashes, as an interesting sidebar, consumers led the revolution, not the VC community, and certainly not advertisers. In the middle of this whole revolution was this thing called the startup, and the startup has continued to really be the star of the show. From the new media through social media, mobile media, emerging media, etc. We see startups today, whether they're Craigslist, whether they're of course Priceline or Facebook or YouTube, Twitter, Google, all of these companies that are behemoths. Everybody wants to get big fast. Everybody wants to get rich quick. Everybody wants to be part of the next wave, the next big thing. But in the middle of this thing, I looked at the startup and I recognized that there was something very, very interesting in play. The startup was completely dominated by West Coast thinking, what I call a West Coast mentality. It was technology people and VCs and funding people, finance people. So you had all of these technology and finance people, for the most part geographically located on the West Coast, Palo Alto, Silicon Valley. And in almost every one of these cases, in almost every single one of these startups, all the business models, all the revenue streams seem to be following the same line, which is this idea of advertiser supported or marketer subsidized. All of them ended on the doorsteps of Madison Avenue. But at that point in the process, it was so far downstream that really brands had no influence, no say, no ability to mold or fine-tune what was otherwise and still is today a very underwhelming value proposition. So in other words, the startup, by the time it got big fast, by the time it was successful, by the time all of those VC funding was realizing that original vision, there was something wrong with that end product or outcome. And in a way, brands got what they deserved or got what they asked for. They wanted the reach, they wanted the quantity, they wanted the scale. But what they got in the end wasn't something that was a better mousetrap in terms of changing an industry or changing a brand or being able to change the way that we do business. What they got at the end of the day was just more paid media, more impressions. So I looked at the startup and I said to myself, what if we could reverse engineer the startup? Instead of ending on the doorstep of Madison Avenue, what if we began on Madison Avenue? What if we began with the brand and worked our way backwards into technology and into finance and funding? If you think about it, it's quite simple and quite simplistic in terms of its value proposition. The whole space up until now was if you build it, they will come. Because we were trying to force feed or stumble our way into getting big fast. But if we begin with brand truths and consumer insights, if we are creating technology solutions to business problems, what might we achieve then? From a technology standpoint, certainly we have the ability to build anything today. If you can dream it, you can do it. That Walt Disney quote is true now more than ever before. Well, from a funding or financing standpoint, that's the interesting part. That's the real X factor here. Where's this money going to come from? It's going to come from the brands. Hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars of money that was going into paid media, into advertising, into television, into radio, into print, now has the ability to be optimized and invested somewhere else. So we believe that brands can be funders. We believe that brands have an acute and a distinct and a very, very compelling role to play in terms of actually facilitating the next wave of growth. with respect to startups. Brand-funded startups, startups for brands. That's what Evol8tion is about. We are out to turn brands from being media dependent to be media discerning. We believe brands should and must be developing direct relationships, service-based relationships and utility-based relationships with their consumers, with their customers, with their loyalists, with their advocates, with their influencers, and indeed with their employees and even their community. This is the opportunity. And the beautiful thing about it is you don't have to break the bank to do it. Evol8tion is about helping matchmake early stage companies with their brand soulmate. Evol8tion is about reverse engineering the startup, early stage investment in early stage companies, partnership, pilots, investment, even acquisition of those companies. We look at every single startup and we say, that startup, if it is a viable startup, it must have a brand soulmate. And like relationships, everybody has a soulmate. You just have to find them. You just have to look hard enough. You just have to be open to new ideas and new possibilities, open-minded and aware, and prepared to actually work a little bit harder to find that soulmate. So Evol8tion is an innovation agency designed to put brands back in control by reverse engineering the startup to essentially create technology solutions to business problems. We're an agency, we're an agent. We are a middleman. We are out to actually broker these relationships between these two seemingly diametrically opposite, polar opposite worlds, the West Coast and the East Coast, Madison Avenue and Mountain View. We're out to try and find a way and be a bridge or a conduit. Evol8tion is about helping matchmake early stage companies with their brand soulmate. Evol8tion is about reverse engineering the startup, early stage investment in early stage companies, partnership, pilots, investment, even acquisition of those companies. We look at every single startup and we say, that startup, if it is a viable startup, it must have a brand soulmate. And like relationships, everybody has a soulmate. You just have to find them. You just have to look hard enough. You just have to be open to new ideas and new possibilities, open-minded and aware, and prepared to actually work a little bit harder to find that soulmate. Evol8tion is an innovation agency designed to put brands back in control by reverse engineering the startup to essentially create technology solutions to business problems. We're an agency, we're an agent. We are a middleman. We are out to actually broker these relationships between these two seemingly diametrically opposite, polar opposite worlds, the West Coast and the East Coast, Madison Avenue and Mountain View. We're out to try and find a way and be a bridge or a conduit to fuse these two worlds together, Madison Avenue and Mountain View. We believe that brands have an incredible opportunity right now, not to do it themselves, because brands can't do it themselves. Brands are not, they're not VCs. They're not technology companies. But they have the ability to partner with the right companies that are subject matter experts in technology, in finance, and indeed in understanding the power of brands and brand building. We're not interested in developing the next Facebook or the next Twitter or the next Foursquare. But we believe that for every Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Foursquare, there are in fact tens of thousands of companies that never got the chance even to demonstrate their potential. So we want to talk to early stage companies, early stage entrepreneurs, and help them find a different way for them to realize their dreams and realize their vision. To partner with the brands that ultimately they're going to end up courting anyway. So why not do that upstream? Why not do that earlier in the process? That's where we think the sweet spot is going to be. We're building a database, an unprecedented database of early stage companies that will be matched to specific industries, specific business problems, and specific brands. And our clients will have the ability to tap into that database and be able to broker these relationships and influence the ultimate direction of these startups early on enough to the point where the end product will not be underwhelming anymore. I firmly believe that advertising's salvation is in technology. Advertising's future lies in and through technology. I believe in the power of storytelling, but I equally believe in technology and the possibilities that technology brings to the table, but especially when technology and idea generation and storytelling are fused together with a brand foundation, a brand platform, a brand framework at the table. Anything, and I mean anything, is possible. It's time to realize those possibilities. It's time to evolve. I'm Joseph Jaffe, and I approve this message.